special guests. It's a beautiful day out there. Spring fever is upon us. And yet you've chosen, of all the things that you can do, to spend some time with us this evening. And your chapter, in its mission of trying to help provide content that will get you from where you are to where you want to be in your professional career, have lined up another great one for today. It has to do with, I've seen this before, DA. I keep hearing about DA, and I keep getting about, what is that? Is that the dark arts of project management? No, it's Disciplined Agile. But we have arranged for a wizard to be with us today to be able to have us get down and dirty in what Disciplined Agile really means from a practical sense. More on that special guest speaker in just a little bit. But first, I want to welcome everybody. And I want to make a particular point of welcoming our new members over the course of the first quarter. Here's a listing here, alphabetized by first name. Go ahead and look up your name if you're there. Welcome. Good to have you. Go ahead in the chat. Introduce yourself there. We'd all love to join in celebrating your new membership. So thanks for being there. We also want to take some time to recognize the newly certified. And we also happen to have a list of that. So congratulations to the folks on the list here. If you're here, go and you happen to be in the session, go ahead in the chat window and say hey to everybody so we can help celebrate your certification, the great work that you have done to be able to earn that achievement. We do have a few other announcements to touch on tonight before we get on to the main event. First of all, the website, it's been refreshed. Please check it out, pmicic.org. Provide some feedback on it. Think it's a nice upgrade there. Second bullet here has to do with, the board of directors meetings on a monthly basis. They're the first Wednesday, where this event's typically always on the third Wednesday. The first Wednesday, the board meets. They're open meetings. In fact, you can also submit questions or other considerations for walk-in topics to the board at info@pmicic.org. But they're open. It's not a secret society, in case you thought that. You can just come on in and take a look, watch what's going on, and see what's happening behind the scenes a little bit. Don't lose your chapter benefits by not having the auto renew signed up on your membership. So please, if you haven't checked on that recently, go ahead and check that. Make certain that you are all set for auto renew. It's pretty convenient and good thing to have. We always rely upon your survey results also for these events. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for the ideas and suggestions for future sessions. That's partly why we have the type of session we have tonight. And so that will come up to you. That will come up on a link at the end of the session. And please it takes about 60 seconds maybe to fill that out. Also, one of the things we work to improve, that's not on this list here, but the networking session. So the networking session will follow the speaker. We are fortunate that our guest speaker will also be able to attend the networking session. And we put some effort into improving that experience there. I hope you choose to spend an extra 20 minutes with us or so, 20 to 25 minutes after the speaker to carry on the topic a little bit further. And then I'd love to hear your feedback. We'd all love to hear your feedback on how that goes. All righty, but now it's that segment here where it's a time for a word from one of our board members. And I'm pleased to introduce to you the Vice President of Communications, Kelly Sandstrom. Who's here with us. And Kelly, I understand that you have like a special recognition type of a message for us today.
I do. Thanks, Rich. Hi, everyone. As Rich said, my name is Kelly Sandstrom, and I'm your board vice president of communications. March is a special month for me as it's International Women's Month. When I was preparing remarks for tonight, I came across a recent blog post written by Brantley Underhill, who is PMI's managing director of North America. And in the blog, she touched on a few important facts. In February 2021, there were 2.3 million fewer women in the labor force than in February 2020. In September 2020, women left the workforce at 4 times the rate of men, largely because of the demands of child or elder care and homeschooling. And tracking progress in the project management field is challenging. Historically, the common understanding is that women make up roughly 20 to 30% of our profession. But the positive news is that based on the most recent PMI member data, roughly 40% of PMI members in 2020 were female, up from 28% in 2005. Pay parity, however, is still lagging. Women still only earn $89 for every $100 earned by male counterparts. These statistics probably aren't new for you, but I do hope that they remind you how important it is to continue to come together as a community to support and strengthen our organization's DE&I programs to advance the project management profession and the global economy. With that being said, I want to take a moment to celebrate. You may recognize some of the faces here, and some of you may not, and that's okay. But these faces represent the women all across the globe who are doing their part to advance our local chapter, PMI Global, and the project management profession as a whole. So wherever you are sitting, I invite you to do a virtual round of applause for these women and women everywhere. Thank you for all that you do. And to close out my portion of the presentation tonight, I would encourage you to get involved in advancing the next generation of women, whatever that might look like for you. On this slide, I've shared several local organizations who support confidence building in girls and elevate the next generation of female professionals. An organization near and dear to my heart is Pass the Torch for Women Foundation, whose mission is to empower women through mentoring, connecting, and investing in them at all stages of their careers. To learn more, please visit their website at passthetorchforwomen.org. And with that, let's get on with tonight's feature presentation. Back to you, Rich.
Thanks, Kelly, and congratulations and truly a celebration. A big thank you to all women in this profession, and what a great message, and glad we're able to bring that across to you tonight. It's the disclaimer slide. It's that black and gray and white one that says the speaker is coming up next. But first, note that PMI members are determined that honesty, responsibility, respect, and fairness are important values, and we should practice them. Just a reminder about that. As such, all the work presented here today is the intellectual property of the presenters. Views, thoughts, opinions expressed by people such as myself and that speaker that's coming up belong solely to us and not necessarily those of PMI or PMI-CIC. And the unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or copyrighted work is illegal, punishable, so don't do that. However, the slides will be available, as you can see in the chat window there. And now it's time for the wizard right here. We went back in time to last year to be able to pick up someone that would be pretty sharp on this topic of Disciplined Agile. So John Stenbeck, president and founder of Great PM, I love that name, Great PM, is a 3-time Amazon #1 best-selling author. Among his works are the Agile Elmneck Trilogy and Enterprise Agility in Healthcare. John was a forensic accountant before he became an engineer and then a project manager. So his approach to leadership, innovation, and agility involves optimistic skepticism, love that term, along with deep, careful research to clarify best practices so they can be used to cultivate amazing outcomes in any organization. John, by the way, was instrumental in ensuring that the contents and the materials of the Disciplined Agile certification program would be world-class, maximize the benefit to his fellow PMI members. So John is a PMP, certified Disciplined Agile instructor, PMI ACP, certified Scrum professional, certainly enough letters to say he's truly a wizard. In summary, his goal is to give you useful, powerful information in an easily accessible format. So please buckle up, hold on tight, because John is about to help you fast track your expertise to the next level. John, thanks for taking the time to join us, and welcome back.
Hey, Rich, thank you so much. And I also want to say a quick thank you to Melissa and Casey and you for helping with covering the Q&A chat and all that stuff to make sure that everybody can get their questions asked. If you're joining us tonight, I want to encourage you to ask questions at any time. Put them in the chat. We'll get them, forwarded to me, and so that we can really get into this topic. As you see on my opening slide there, I'm a big believer in what Albert Einstein said, right? If you can't explain it so a 6th grader can understand it, you're not really an expert. And so that's the standard I'm going to hold myself to. I'm going to let you hold me to it. And I'm going to really try and make Disciplined Agile understandable, practical, usable, give you some great how-to advice and instructions and tools and techniques and all that kind of stuff. We're going to do it and also address a non-software-centric kind of enterprise agility worldview, because I know you see a lot of Agile focused on software, and not all of us are in software. So whether you do products or services, or products as a service, tangible or intangible, this is going to apply to you. Also, I know some of you are new members, so welcome. Glad to have you here. We're going to make it understandable for you. Some of you are experienced PMPs. We're going to make it valuable to you. A few of you, I think, are already Disciplined Agile Scrum Master certified. So we're going to try and enhance what you already know and give you some tools that you can use to really maximize that knowledge base. So let's dive in, right? There's two rules that we need to start with, and these come from the category, we'll call it, of what you already know. And they're rules for delivering stakeholder value, which I'm sure you're aware is the only metric that honestly matters anymore. Thanks to FANG, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, we refer to them now as FANG, using that acronym, right? They have established in our customers' minds that they can have whatever they want, tailored exactly the way they wanted, ordered online, and delivered the next day for free. So their expectations have gone crazy. So when the customer experiences value is when you arrive with scoring points, we'll call it, right? Where they know that you're doing something that's valuable to them. And so delivering stakeholder value, rule number one, communication is the deliverable until they have the deliverable. If you've seen me present before, you've probably heard me say that. It's a mantra I live by. Communication is the deliverable until they have the deliverable. I think every project manager out there knows this rule, and yet I run across so many who struggle with being good at communication, especially early in the project when they feel like there's nothing much there to communicate. So one of the things that Disciplined Agile gives you is a view into how to communicate early and to set up that communication relationship with the stakeholders so they begin experiencing communication with you as a source of value to them. You need to do that early before there's any major decisions or issues or challenges or anything else. So they're in the habit of making time for you, prioritizing time with you, and ingraining in their mind that you are a trusted advisor, a valuable trusted advisor. So rule number one, communication is the deliverable until we have the deliverable. That goes along with rule number two, right? Which is deliver effectivity first and efficiency second, right? Effectivity first, efficiency second. If you efficiently deliver something they don't want, you've made a mistake, no matter how cost effective your choice of approach was. Delivering what they want must come first, and after we understand and have framed that, then how can we deliver what they want in the most efficient way possible? So those two rules have to be kept in mind, and we're going to do that. And I know you already knew that. Something else I think you already knew is that you're facing this dichotomy as you go forward. Because of the complexity and the uncertainty that has been imposed on your projects, imposed on your organization, it has now become our responsibility as the project management leaders, as the project management professionals, as the organizational go-to people. And we drive innovation or we allow stagnation. And this idea has been around for a long time, but I want to make sure you have a concrete visualization of it, right? We are facing what's referred to as non-linear distortion. If you went to management school, right, you got your MBA or something like that. If you went to some other disciplines, right, like engineering or perhaps project management or even product management, each of them has a vocabulary structure that attests to this nonlinear distortion, whether you call it strategic planning, a rough order of magnitude estimate, or a portfolio, you know that the level of granularity, the level of detail that you can honestly, accurately understand, decompose, forecast is much bigger than what you can at the much shorter time window, right? At the T minus 90 days that you see illustrated there at the bottom, right? Where you're talking about operational or definitive or sub-project or features. So there's a spread there, but it's non-linear in how it increases or decreases. The farther into the future you're looking, right, the more of a strategic time horizon or a portfolio time horizon you're looking on, the greater that distortion is because of time. Likewise, if it's a $5 billion project, it has, much more uh, uh, distortion, nonlinear kind of distortion than a smaller project, right? A $5 million project has much more than 10 times as much complexity and uncertainty as a $500,000 project. And so it's nonlinear in that sense. And that is why, right, we have to approach, and the agile approaches and the lean disciplines approach it with a transparency, inspection, and adaptation, a learning and discovery type of mode. And so when we look at this cone of uncertainty, kind of verticalized on the left side of the slide you see there, and the farthest time out, right, where the distortion is the greatest and the least can be known, what we can do is analyze the context of the environment that we're attempting to deliver value in. And a good example to get the sense of this context and how important context is. In fact, in Disciplined Agile, we say context counts. And so if we're talking about a police department versus a manufacturing company versus a professional services company, it's quite obvious to you that the context in each of those environments is different. But if we pick one, if we pick the police department, not only does it have a context, but the subunits, the departments, the groups, each have their own context, right? The SWAT team context is different than the public relations team, which is different than the daily patrols team. And so understanding which context we're looking at, framing things in, responding to, plays a role in defining how we should approach creating projects, products, services, tangibles, intangibles, and ultimately effectively delivering value that the customer can experience, and then being able to do it efficiency. So we start out the Disciplined Agile approach, kind of the lean approach, really, in many respects, could be said that has kind of 5 steps here, right? First, we're going to analyze the big picture, understand the context. Then within that context, we're going to select a life cycle that's best aligned to the goals, the objectives, the outcomes we want to accomplish. So then obviously we're going to need to define those objectives. Then, because we're using transparency, inspection, adaptation, this learning and discovery mode, we're going to select an experiment to test whether a certain change would improve our outcomes or not. And so we're going to measure that change. And then if it has done what we wanted, what we expected, we're going to adopt it. If not, we're going to abandon it. And Rick, I see you. It looks like you've joined me again on screen. So do we have a great question or a question?
A quick clarifying question while
Yes,
we're on
please.
the slide, and that is the number
That's
that are there.
perfect. Yeah.
So is there a unit of measure on that, I think?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. One more time.
Yes, the numbers on the time, the 450,
Yes,
350,
yes.
270, what does that represent?
So those are figurative, not literal. But yes, for instance, T minus 450 days would mean, or T minus 450 would refer to a year and a half before the expected go live or delivery date, as opposed to T minus 0. Oh my God, we are go live today.
Great, thank you.
So, good clarifying question. And whoever generated that, Rich, whether that was you or somebody else in the audience, thanks for asking that question. Again, ask them as we go, because you'll get a much better understanding of this if you get those clarifications as we're moving forward. So thank you.
Gold star, Jessica.
All right. So we're going to analyze the context, as I said, select the life cycle, define the objective, select an experiment, and measure and change. Well, when you think about it, and for those of you who are PMP have your PMP credential, have taken a PMP prep class, right? You knew that you had to recognize what you see picture, that something that looks like a graphical WBS. Remember, we had to know that objectives break down into phases, which break down into work packages, which break down into activities, which break down into tasks, right? So we can drill down and roll up. And so you might think about this approach as having that same kind of characteristic. We're going to drill down and roll up, that we can look at varying levels of granularity or detail as we're thinking through planning and executing our processes and our strategies. So the analyzed context, right? We have the one-to-one relationship of a police department or a SWAT team or a public relations team within the police department. Whatever that context is, one-to-one to the considerations the team is making. Then we're going to select that life cycle. So now we're going to drill down, decompose, and make some choices. Well, one of the interesting things about the Disciplined Agile Toolkit is it identifies 6 life cycles from the Agile space that you can look at, and it really they cover most of the bases. I would say that the traditional life cycle is perhaps the 7th cycle. So we have a ratio here of 1 context to 6 life cycles, or 1 context to 7 life cycles. That's kind of what you see illustrated down the right side there. Then in the Disciplined Agile Toolkit, in the WOW, the way of working book, the knowledge base that's provided, those 6 life cycles are then defined in 21 process goals. And so we can take the life cycle, we can decide what the objectives are that we're trying to achieve or to improve upon, and we can use these process goals to then narrow our focus to where we might experiment or make some choices to see if a change would in fact improve the outcomes. And so when we make those choices, right, the Disciplined Agile Toolkit, the knowledge base, comes with 227 specific experiments with a lot of detailed information backing them up that are categorized into those 21 process goals. So now whatever process goal you selected, you can now drill down into, on average, about 10 or 11 different choices of experiments that will help you see ways to improve your process outcomes and deliver results, deliver value that's effective for the stakeholders and efficient in the way we deliver. And that leads to that final lowest level of decomposition, which is now that we've made some choices and we want to evaluate and decide what kind of metrics can we use to understand whether that practice really helped and how to continuously improve it. And there are more than 2,000 of those detailed in the way of working book. By the way, in case you haven't seen it, right, it looks like this. You can access a free PDF copy as part of your PMI membership. But since it only costs around $20 or $25, I highly recommend that you buy a printed copy. You'll see that mine's a little different than one you might buy, because I took it to FedEx office and I had them cut the binding off and put one of these spirals on it, because that turns it into a lay flat. Now this looks like, right, size-wise, it looks like about the size of a PMBOK. There's a huge difference, however. The PMBOK, I don't know about you, but my copy, it mostly has collected dust, on the shelf or in a filing cabinet. This is going to be an absolute workbook where you're going to post a note and write notes and share notes, and you can use this to explain and show things to your teams and your clients. And you've got all of this 411 pages of content that's organized in a way that's easy to drill down into or roll back up out of. And so it aids you in being efficient in doing the effectively correct next step. And so this process, right, we have this 5-step process. Well, we said the first step is analyze context, right? Remember, communication is the deliverable. Well, one of the things included in the Disciplined Agile Toolkit is this spider diagram that you see here. Now, this is a spider diagram, not the spider diagram. It's a good one, and it's one that you can and should tailor to your teams or your environments. The way we would apply this for a police department would be a little different than the way we might apply it for a SWAT team or public relations team or daily patrols team. And the things that we want to measure against might be different for a professional services company or organization, a manufacturing enterprise, or a police department, a public agency or institution. But it still gives you the basic idea. There's a couple of things that are really, I think, kind of super cool that might escape the eye. So I want to point them out to you. One of the things is that it's set up so that it aligns kind of with the preconditioning of those of us who kind of come from a Western or American orientation, or where we've grown up. In that the six axes that are on here, or spikes, they each kind of, it kind of gives that look of the face of a clock. And so when we're using this as a tool with the team, right, we use it starting at 12 o'clock, starting at the top, and we pivot clockwise as we discuss these. So to give you a little bit of what this might look or feel like, right? I'm an outside consultant to most organizations, right? That's my role. And so when I come in, I'm working with a team. I say, I need to help you and you need to help me, but we need to understand the organizational context. And so now I've shared a copy of this spider diagram, or one that's been perhaps tailored to their specific environment a little bit. And I say, so let's have a discussion. Is your understanding of what we're trying to attempt here with this project or this program or this initiative, how big is the team size that we're dealing with? And after we've had that discussion, we narrow it down. We say, okay, let's call it 25, right? Then I'm going to mark 25 on that. Then I'm going to, again, continue clockwise and ask the team, okay, so what's the distribution on this? Are we all co-located right here in the same space? Or are we spread out, in the same building? Are we in the same time zone? And I'm going to mark that. And I'm going to continue, as you see here, going around this clockwise. We're going to talk about organizational distribution. We're going to talk about compliance issues or concerns. We're going to talk about technical complexity, and finally about domain complexity. Notice that with each of these steps around the circle, what we talk about gets more abstract. It gets more open to interpretation. And if I had you here in a live audience, we were all together, I would ask you, so when's the best time to find out that your teammates are thinking about things completely differently, early or late? And you would tell me, obviously, early, right? The sooner we figure out that we're not all playing from the same sheet of music, the better off we are. And so the discussion I'm having with the team here is to unify our understanding, to clarify, to surface where it's somebody from the QA side of the house might have a different perspective than the developer, might have a different perspective from a business unit representative, might have whoever those team members are, that they have these different perspectives. So I'm trying to unify that. I'm also noting what we settle on, as well as any questions or choices options, assumptions we've made to identify those. Because one of the other things I tell them is that after they've helped me understand this and I've got this marked up, I'm going to be able to take it. And now that it's marked up, I'm going to take it back and I'm going to have a discussion with the senior stakeholders that we're involved with. And this, again, coming back to that, communications is the deliverable, and for you to understand how you can use this to enhance your influence quotient, what I like to call IQ2, right? The first 5 years of your career is driven by your IQ, how smart are you and how good your college degree. The second phase of your career is driven by your EQ, how well can you work with others and teams and get things done with groups of various sizes and configurations. The third phase I like to call IQ2, your influence quotient. How well can you influence key decision makers and stakeholders? How well can you establish in their mind that you are a trusted advisor, that you're more competent in this area than they are, and so they should rely on you? When they do that, you deal with a lot less confused, irrational stakeholders, because they begin to rely on you, but also because you begin to open their eyes so they see that you delve into this, you analyze this, you work with this a lot deeper and more thoroughly and more cogently than they do. And so now when I have this from the team meeting where I've identified this and I've made the notes about the various assumptions we've made, I now get on the phone or I send the email to those key stakeholders one at a time. Usually I say I need 15 minutes of your time so that you can correct any mistakes we might have made based on the outcome of the discussions I've had to initiate the project with the team. Now, there's a couple of keys here. One is I only ask for 15 minutes because, getting an hour on a lot of these busy executives' calendar might take weeks, and I need them to start forming the habit of responding to me quickly. Well, they can find 15 minutes rather quickly someplace in their calendar, and they will. So 15 minutes, and here's the blood in the water for the sharks, to correct our mistakes. Now, the truth is, we're not actually having them correct our mistakes. What most often happens is they go, oh, well, I guess you didn't realize because I didn't tell you we're using this for a new division that's going to be sold to hospitals. And instead of, as you see reflected here, instead of process level compliance, we're going to need to meet life critical levels of compliance. Oh, I say to them. So that changes because the bigger that area that's encompassed, the more complexity and uncertainty we have. That might impact our schedule or our budget. I'm going to have to analyze it with the team and get back to you. But I've called them. I've scheduled 15 minutes for them to correct my mistakes. When I get there for the appointment, as I'm walking in the door of their office, I say, thank you for giving me 15 minutes. I'll be very conscious of your time, and I'll be out of here in 15 minutes. But I want you to know I have cleared an hour on my calendar. So if you decide you want more time, I'm available to you. Did you see how I did that? I only need 15. I'll be done in 15, but I cleared an hour. So if you want it, you can have it. And I'm very conscious of that. I present this very quickly. I ask them if they have any questions. And if we're okay, thank you very much. I see that my 15 minutes are nearly up. I'm going to go now, unless they tell me to stay. Executives are very busy, and they appreciate people who stick to the times that they requested and bring them high value interactions where they get something done. So I've had that first meeting. Now, with that tool done and that meeting done, I've now have the opportunity to go and talk with the team again, to have another team meeting, or perhaps it was the second half of the first meeting, depending on my relationship with the team. But there's a key question to ask yourself here, and that's how many life cycles can you deploy professionally? See, because if you're a one-trick pony, if the only life cycle, the only approach you know is the traditional waterfall approach, you have greatly limited your ability to serve your team and your organization, to reduce risk and deliver high value. So being able to deliver more in more ways using more life cycles is really important and really valuable. And so what we have now is essentially a decision tree. And this is where we come to rule number 2. Remember, effectivity first and efficiency second. Well, this is getting an efficient way to get to the effectivity. And so what we see here is a decision tree. And as you answer the questions, it leads you down to, should you use an exploratory life cycle or a program life cycle, a continuous delivery lean or continuous delivery agile, a lean life cycle, right? You see those 6 small blue, light blue circles. So each of those represents the life cycle. And then at the kind of the top rightmost little illustration there, you see the traditional life cycle, the waterfall life cycle represented. Now, again, this is not the decision tree. This is a decision tree, but it has a very good structure, and you can use it to customize. You can tailor it to your environment so it becomes even more effective. Now, as I'm having that meeting with my team, again, I'm circling my yeses or my nos. I'm making notations about why we've selected, such and such, or why we think, it's this particular life cycle is the right choice for the team to use. And again, I've explained to my team, I'm going to have a discussion with the senior executives, again, debrief them, make sure that they didn't forget to tell us something. So I've done that exercise. And again, I'm sorry I'm not going into more depth on this. We're really moving fast because we have very limited time together tonight. But we would love to spend more time with you on this. You just, your chapter leadership is really focused on how do we bring the most possible value to you. And so we've got this quick one. We can do a follow-up. Let them know if you'd like to do that. So you have this tool. You've marked it up. And now the second call to those key stakeholders, right? Again, remember, communication is the deliverable. I'm starting out early, training those key stakeholders to respect me as a trusted advisor, to understand that I actually think about this with much greater depth and much greater comprehension than they do. I've had them actually say, oh my God, I've never had a project manager do this before. I've never seen a project manager who operated this way before. What they're really saying is you are better, you're different, you stand out. And that's something that being disciplined, agile, competent allows you to do. So you come to them, again, you call, you say, hey, I need 30 minutes of your time. Notice I went from 15 to 30. I'm training them to give me time blocks that I need. I need 30 minutes of your time so you can correct any mistakes we might have made. Now, again, when I walk in, thank you for giving me 30 minutes. I'll be done and out of here in 30. Unless you decide you want more, I have cleared my calendar again for an hour so that time's available if you want it. And I'm here again to advise you, give you some information, and get your feedback. And then I go ahead, I present it very quickly. We have a discussion. I get any feedback. Thank you very much. I'm out of their office. I've now registered for a second time that I stick to the times that I ask for, that I come well prepared to have a competent discussion with them, that I expose them to things they don't know or haven't been exposed to or thought about before in the way of project management. And so now when we get to the point where there are issues or challenges or important things, or I need more of their time, or it's time for me to give a check-in with them, they're now beginning to form the communication habit, the openness to scheduling time with me so I don't have to wait weeks to see them to get those key decisions made. And that leads to a whole nother topic we won't cover tonight called decision latency and how to reduce it. All right, so we've got the spider diagram for the context. We've selected the life cycle, right? Now we need to understand that delivering effectively and efficiently, regardless of whether you're delivering tangible or intangible, product or service to product as a service, at some level, every project follows the same basic high level path, right? It starts with envision and planning, then building something, then transferring it to daily operations where it's then operated. And whether you're using a linear approach like a waterfall approach or an iterative approach like Agile or Kanban, right? When we get to the point where we're transferring to the operations stage, we're also looking back to what do we want in the way of lessons learned? What have we picked up that we should add to our envisioning and planning for the next part of this cycle? And so we have that. And that brings us right to this idea that at high level, the way it's defined in Disciplined Agile is there's an inception phase, a construction phase, a transition phase, and then the ongoing phase. But the key question that we're continuously asking is, where does the opportunity lie? Is it in the early part or the late part? Where is it that we seem to stumble or fall? Where is it that we seem to get thrown off track or lose our ability to be effective and efficient? Rich, I see you're back.
I do. We got a couple of questions. I thought interject quickly here. Let's see here. Let me get this on. There we go. From Karen Walker. It has to do with the analyzed content portion of DA analysis. What is that? Is that the preliminary organization development and change?
Okay, so it's analyze context, not content. And so the context is the environment. Again, the context for the SWAT team is high intensity, immediate solution, high risk. The context for the public relations team is cultivate relationships, transfer information, and communicate in a way that fosters good community relations. The context for the daily patrol teams is how to keep the cars, the patrol cars fueled, keep the staff scheduled, have the correct people in the correct place at the correct time to respond to incidences that you couldn't have forecast were coming. So it is analyze context, not content.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. And this is a pretty broad one. I've been saving it for now, but now may be a good time. Give me a little bit of a compare and contrast difference then.
Okay, so I'm gonna say so traditional Agile, what we like to call small scale or single team Agile, like Scrum, XP, Lean software development, is where Agile started, and there's good evidence to say that evolutionary period is drawing to a close because it was very successful with small teams. But then organizations said, hey, it works for one team, I want to do it for 100 teams. It worked for a project, I want to do it for a program or a portfolio. And that was the energy, the genesis. That's where the focus today is. How do we do this enterprise level, enterprise class kinds of agile stuff, right? And so we went from traditional or small scale agile to enterprise or large scale agile. And SAFE was the first major offering, we'll call it, in that area, the first major body of knowledge, the first major proposal or proponents of how to do that. In fact, SAFE stands for the Scaled Agile Framework. Well, SAFE was developed by a couple of really brilliant guys. It's a really powerful, really robust system, but they both came from a software-centric worldview. So if your organization or your core problems or your core focus is software-centric, then there's a good possibility. I see what happened. Okay, I saw my slide came back. Wait, whoa. So if your core focus is software-centric, SAFE may be a very good solution for you. But SAFE, because of their worldview, is very prescriptive about what you do, when you do it, how you name it, all those kinds of things. And not every environment is well suited to that. So Disciplined Agile, not only can it integrate SAFE for any business unit group or program portfolio where that's appropriate, but it now has tools and processes and techniques and ways to handle things that maybe aren't necessarily closely aligned with the Scaled Agile framework, right? With the software-centric worldview. If you're manufacturing products or if you deliver services or you do some of these other things where software is important, but it's not centric, it's not the core of what creates the customer's experience of value, then while SAFE may be a little more efficient initially to get you started, it may have some future constraints that could be problematic for you. Disciplined Agile is not a framework, it's a toolkit. It's a practitioner's work kit or toolbox, tool suite, whatever you want to call it, so that you can do a diagnostic approach of diagnosing where we're running into challenges and the best way to address and respond to those. That was a great question. Thank you to whoever asked that. Rich, thanks for bringing that on.
Joseph Compton.
When you
You
did,
bet.
that was a good time for that question. All right. So at a high level, we have these 4 phases: inception, construction, transition, or you can think of it as envision and plan, build, transfer, and operate. And we're moving through this and we're doing certain things. So again, how does Disciplined Agile help you? Well, remember again, rule number 1 is communication is the deliverable. So the Disciplined Agile toolkit has taken these 4 phases of inception, which you see pictured kind of in that purple color, the group all the way to the left, the construction phase in the center there in that, I'll call it light blue color, the transition phase, and we'll call it the orange color to the right, and then the ongoing phase in that kind of gray bar across the bottom. Because ongoing is not only while those 3 phases are happening, but after those 3 phases, after transition in an ongoing sense. And we've said there's really 21 core areas or places to look for how we're going to define our objectives and how we're going to refine and improve. And in fact, this is a growing body of knowledge. The newest edition, which hasn't been published yet, will actually have 24 of these. But for our purposes, we're going to stick with the version we have here. It's got 21 of these. And so how do we use this, right? How do we efficiently enable process improvement for our projects and our enterprises? And the way we do that is we looked at these 21. And it's worth noting, interestingly, for those of you who have been around a while and recognize the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule that says 20% of what you do drives 80% of your impact. For instance, if you're in the banking or lending or finance business, you know that 20% of your customers drive 80% of your profitability, and a different 20% drive 80% of your problems, your angst, your aggravation, and all those other things. And so the FANG model, right, the Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google model, which is called disruption by design, that business model says, if I'm going to go in the financing business or the lending business, I want to identify that 20% that are the most profitable and design my offerings so that it delivers value to them, and at the same time so that it does not deliver value to the costly 20%. Well, interestingly, field experience over a long time using the Disciplined Agile tools and knowledge base has found that these 5 that you see in dotted rectangles here, explore, scope, identify, architecture strategy, develop, test strategy, those 3 in the inception area, accelerate value delivery in the construction area, and coordinate activities in the ongoing phase. Those 5 are the 20% that drive typically 80% of the opportunities, 80% of the angst, the aggravation, the pain, the conversations in the real world. So, by the way, in case you decide to study for the DASM certification exam, and I'm not your instructor, you might want to note that because your other instructor might not point that out to you, but that tells you where to focus your study plan so you optimize your preparation time and the opportunity to pass that exam on the first try. But those 5, so we have 21 of these. Those 5 are the 20% that drive the 80%. But how do we use them? So let's use an example here, right? We're asking the question again, where is the opportunity hiding? And in this example, if we say that the opportunity for this particular organization or group is in the form team area, right? That's where we don't ever seem to get quite the right team, or the team's not quite up to speed or something. So let's figure out what to do there. Now, if you went to your team, I want you to try and visualize it. I want you to think about this. In your environment, if you went to your team or to your key stakeholders and you said, look, we need to improve our team formation process. And you were going to have a whiteboard brainstorming session. So, okay, what could we do to improve that process? All right, can you picture that? And I want you to think about what are some of the things, you might even jot down, what are some of the things that you know would be identified and go on those post-it notes on that whiteboard. And then I want you to consider whether or not it would be as comprehensive as this list that you could drill down into if you have this practicum, right? If you have this workbook, if you have this practitioner's handbook, you can drill down into that area and you can find this list from sourcing team members and an evolution strategy to the sizes and structures of team to member skills to how we support the team, to the availability of team members, to time zone distributions. You know, I got to tell you, I was a project manager for a long time, and I struggled with not having quite the right team, or at one point as director of IT of an aerospace company, and team formation was a big deal, and we weren't getting it done, and we worked at it. But, you know, until I discovered the Disciplined Agile toolkit in the knowledge base and started working with Scott Ambler and Mark Lyons, who wrote it, right? And that was long before PMI acquired it, which, by the way, I think one of PMI's smartest acquisitions ever was acquiring Disciplined Agile and Scott Ambler and Mark Lyons. This is a powerful toolkit that you, by virtue of being a member, have the opportunity, right? So when you see this, a lot of the hard work, a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. And so that means your team can be more effective if you present this list. And I'm not saying this is the list. I'm saying it's a list. And when your team talks about it, they might say, well, it's not exactly team completeness or team longevity. It's kind of a combination of the two, or it falls between the two. But it's kind of like if I want to get you in the room and facing the wall where the dartboard is so that you can throw a dart and hit the bullseye, the more quickly I can get you in front of that dartboard with a bigger handful of darts and get you started tossing them, the sooner you're going to hit that bullseye. So this knowledge base improves your effectively and at the same time improves your efficiency. And that's very hard. That's not normal in life that you can connect those two quite that easily, right? So we can identify the area in the form teams world where we could probably find the biggest opportunity for improvement, the biggest ROI, the most return for the energy and money and time invested, right? So then we're going to look at how do we apply that knowledge, right? How do we apply that process? And this is where Disciplined Agile leans into, that was kind of funny, leans into lean, right? Kind of funny way to say that, where we borrow from lean, where we leverage the expertise that comes from Lean. I'm not sure why my slide deck just moved. I don't think that was me. All right. And you may have heard of Plan, Do, Check, Act. And we use Plan, Do, Study, Act. And quick history lesson, I can't go into great depth, but Plan, Do, Study, Act was where W. Edward Deming started. It evolved to Plan, Do, Check, Act, and then he returned to Plan, Do, Study, Act because he found when he changed the word from study to check, people started under applying themselves to that phase. And so it was not getting the attention that he thought it deserved. So, right? So we have Plan, Do, Study, Act. And the way we apply this and improve this, and one of the arrows there on the feedback loop looks like got moved around a little bit, but right. So we've expanded it a tiny bit, identify a potential improvement. And then in the do and study part, right? Choose a learning experiment and assess its effectiveness. And this is those two bright yellow rectangles you see there, where the Disciplined Agile toolkit brings you a lot of value and a lot of depth and an easy way to access it. And then once you've applied that, you assess, right? Was it effective? If it was, adopt it. Was it ineffective? Then abandon it. But in any case, be sure to share the learnings across all teams as best you can and feed it into the next step in your potential improvement plan, into your continuous improvement process. And by using this knowledge base, we're able to now start guiding this process improvement. So again, it's Plan, Do, Study, Act. It's a cycle. We repeat it over and over again. And with each iteration of it, we improve our process and continue to grow and get better. So now let's look at and talk a little bit about why is it important to do continuous improvement. And again, it looks like one of the lines on my slides here got flipped from horizontal to vertical, because that white line that's dividing the rectangle in half and pointing out the bottom of it should have been horizontal, showing kind of time. So we have, right, over time, any kind of learning approach, right? Any kind of empirical process where you're applying transparency, inspection, adaptation, you're going to have an unavoidable learning curve dip. And what happens is, right, while we're learning the new vocabulary, while we're learning the new processes, our productivity is going to fall a little bit. But the reason we invest that in that unavoidable learning curve dip is because we anticipate that it's going to then come out of that dip, and we're going to have a period of growth that is going to more than pay for it. The problem is, as you see there with that red dotted line and the method prison words, right? At some point, the advantages you get start to plateau. At the point in time that the framework that you selected stops being a good fit for your environment, right? When you reach the limits of the framework, you start to get constrained by it instead of helped by it. And so now your overall level has improved, but your growth rate flattens out and you kind of get stuck at that same level. And so that's why you see oftentimes after people have been in this method prison for some time, they start chasing what we call hybrid freedom. So now they go through another small learning curve dip while they're adjusting, tailoring, changing, customizing those approaches that they've been using so that they get to develop more fully from it. And the power of Disciplined Agile is that it's a guided continuous improvement process. So you have a smaller learning curve dip at the beginning, and you have a continuous growth curve that doesn't get locked into the method prison that sometimes you experience because of various frameworks. And so as you go forward and you want to be effective and efficient, you need to recognize that the future is about the integration of people, products, projects, and processes. And that's a whole nother talk we could have about how the PMBOK Guide 7th edition aligns with the changes to the ITIL body of knowledge and the Chaos 2020 report, and that's the integration point there that's very important. So if you're thinking about Scrum and PMI ACP, right, that's the initial small scale scrums, and they're very good about helping you improve your processes. The SAFE framework extends that and ties together products and projects and gives you more bandwidth, more opportunity, more growth potential. But the Disciplined Agile toolkit does a much better job of integrating all the various different people and the products, projects, and processes to really drive effectivity, efficiently, and raise the value you're delivering. Now, speaking of value delivery, your chapter has one seems like a real one core focus, which is how do they give you as the members more value? So they got us to agree to provide you an additional 1.5 PDU 90-minute online on-demand course, absolutely 100% free. It's a leadership course. It's based on these great presentations from Simon Sinek, Tim Urban, Julian Treasure, and Brene Brown. Those presentations have had over 150 million views. So they are the presentations that your senior executives have seen, that your coworkers and teams and associates have seen, and you need to be really aware, and they really help you form your leadership skills so you can improve your influence quotient going forward. So if you'd like that free course, you go to the URL that you see posted there on screen, and you put in the coupon code that you see there, CIC, your chapter, DA, Disciplined Agile, -100. So again, CIC, DA, -100. That will take 100% off the purchase price. That will give you a completely free 1.5 PDU online on-demand course to be able to do that in the leadership genre. We also, if you would like, we have created a lexicon grid that compares the traditional vocabulary with the Disciplined Agile, the SAFE, the LESS, and the Scrum at Scale vocabularies, because as you deal with larger and larger teams and bigger environments, you're going to have people who are going to be arguing over, is it tomato or tomato, when they don't realize they mean the same thing. And so having a grid like this can be very helpful. If you'd like that, feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to send it to you. So let me just close out with 2 final thoughts, right? Or 2 final slides, right? There's 411 pages of detailed but easily accessed expert content. Get your free PDF. Think about buying the print book. Put a spiral binding on it. It will be a practitioner's handbook that you'll get a great deal of. This was just a helicopter ride. This was just a fast flyover. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, and I probably should have been moving even a little faster. I hope that I was able to make it so that even a 6th grader could understand what we were talking about. Rich is going to be rejoining us for any additional Q&A. And don't forget, we have the networking session where I'll be there, and we can do more then. And last but not least, if you're interested, we're developing a PM Black Belt program that's got the knowledge base integrated for all 4 of those people, products, projects, processes. And you could opt in to be an early advanced user or advanced reviewer and help us develop that. So you see on the screen there in the PDF a URL where you can opt in, or again, you can email me if you want to opt into this or you want that grid. Whew, Rich, what's next? What are we doing?
John, we are
sometimes, don't I?
Wow. Yeah, like I said, strap in, guys, because we're gonna get quite the download here. John, thank you very much. I'll tell you what, we're gonna need to save any additional questions for the networking, but one of the networking groups is going to score you as a member and be able to have some more intimate one-on-one time. I'll tell you, the one big learning I had is I didn't know I can take a standard bound book and convert it into a spiral bound book at FedEx or something like that. How does
I go
work?
to FedEx office, but any office supply store can do that for you. Man, that is a great trick, isn't it?
That's a wonderful trick and makes the book app helpful to you instead of something they're just breaking like that. John, thank you once again for returning to us and for providing a wonderful session. We did cover a number of questions along the way. And of course, we can't let you get away without awarding you our official certificate of appreciation.
Thank you.
Think now that you have at least 2 of these. Is that one behind
That's
you
what's
there?
framed on the wall.
It's right over there. I can see it. John, thank you yet again. Thank you for hanging around for networking. You'll be able to ask questions there. I think I got the right URL. In fact, I tested it. Of the coupon code, 100% off. That's like free, right?
That's free. 100%
You
free.
said free. Okay.
Free.
I was
You got to
working
create
that.
a user account so they can access it, but I mean, it's free.
All righty. Thank you, John. Now we're going to have a little bit of a segue, and John, you can rejoin with the mic and the video when it comes to the networking session.
Okay, cool. I'll see you then.
We'll see you a little bit later on. At least those in that group. We'll see you later on. In the meantime, gang, it's let's see here. It's time for this. All righty, I got the big old microphone out here. All I need to do is see our special guest volunteer. Okay, we can stop that. That was enough. That was fun. we have arranged a special guest volunteer. If our guest volunteer will click on her microphone and her video camera, and I saw her a little bit earlier with that, I'll be able to introduce an interview for our volunteer here she is for our volunteer mini podcast. Nicole Bogged. Apparently nobody is happier than me. Oh, Nicole, thanks for joining us. I understand you've been very busy. Thanks for carving out the time for John, his great presentation.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
As well. And so tell me, Nicole, how long have you been volunteering for PMI, for the chapter?
Oh, goodness. So let's see. I joined with the PMI chapter as a volunteer just before, about 3 or 4 months before COVID. It's kind of a blur. What is that, 3 years?
That is a blur.
When we were still in, it was in person at the time. And so I kind of dipped my toes in the water there with things as simple as helping set up the meal and find people in. And I have been moving forward ever since.
It's kind of an entry-level volunteer position, just helping with the in-person events as we continue to talk and get closer to actually having those coming up. Hey, so you've actually taken on several volunteer roles then from there?
Yes. So for a time until work kind of got crazy due to a new role, I worked on the program team as a product owner, and also just tried to help in general with our virtual programs. And now I serve as the lead of our speaker acquisition team. So one of my roles is to go out and try and find wonderful speakers to meet the needs of our chapter members. So I read all of those surveys, and I have an Excel spreadsheet, of course, with scoring and responses and all that, so that we can try and find the content for you members that you need, that you're asking for.
Nicole, volunteering is not only like a nice thing to do for an upstanding citizen of the world, but also people gain from their volunteer experiences developmentally. Do you find that that's the case in this? And so what do you think that you've gained developmentally from your PMI volunteer experiences?
So one of the things is I've learned how to measure my, or I guess measure is the best word I can come up with right now, my level of involvement. So what's great about PMI volunteer ability or program, if you will, is that you can do little things, you can do big things. And so I tend to bite off more than I can chew. And so I was able to come in small and have the guidance from the leadership and the board to kind of help slowly grow into other roles, rather than just be like, yes, I will do everything all at once. In my current role, what has been beneficial is that it's getting me out networking. So I'm the introverted extrovert. I know you, Rich. I'll talk to you all day long, and you send me out to a stranger and ask me to go get them as a speaker, and it gets a little, I'm like, ooh. So it's actually stretching me, professionally, because those are skills that I need in my role, because actually my new role requires me to reach out to people I don't know and maybe not comfortable with. So it's helped me tremendously, and both personally and professionally.
Neat, great to hear. Great story there. Nicole, I like to end with a whimsical question here. It's St. Patrick's Eve. I don't know if
Okay.
that's a thing. Maybe it is. I just made it such a. Okay, the final question. Part one: green beer or not?
Not.
Not. Okay. Second, part two. What's your beverage of preference for St. Patrick's Day?
Beer. And I
It is
say not
beer,
green
though.
beer. I say not
Right.
green beer because I'm a beer snob. So my husband and I are beer enthusiasts. We travel around. We try different breweries and all that fun stuff. And generally, that beer's not green.
Nicole Barkis, thank you for volunteering what you've done for the chapter. It's been great to know you through these efforts as well. Delightful. And thanks for stopping by visiting with us.
Great. Thank you, Rich. Take care.
You bet. Okay, gang, it's time for networking. I'm glad that a number of people are staying. We got a great number of people staying with us. Here are the rules of networking, and there aren't that many. We're going to divide up into 5 groups. I have 5 moderators. So each group will have a moderator. You'll get either Kim, Casey, Mel, Galen, or Karen. They will take you through a warm-up question and then 2 other discussion questions.